Greetings everyone. Super Wednesdays here in the Holy Land, the Holy Apple, the Holy Hilltop, here on the 4th day of the new month of Cheshvan. Welcome all. 5781. Okay, today's class, the title is Trump or Biden, who is good for the Jews? Or the second part of our class, who will make, Trump or Biden, who will make America great again? Okay. Last week we established an axiom, a principle of nature, a law of nature, that God created from the time of conception between Rebecca and her two twins, Esav, and Esav, the nation of Edom, Rome, the Christian world, and Jacob, the Jewish nation. When one is up, the other one has to be down. When the other one is up, the other one has to be down. That is our Murphy law. Okay, now there seems to be a contradiction. We are told in the verse in Genesis, we are told at the beginning of the portion of Toldot, Shnei goyim bevitnech, the prophet tells Rebecca, last week we spoke, it's either Abraham or the son of Noah, Shem, or an angel. Prophecy came from one of them, and they said there are two nations in your womb. However, if you look at the spelling, the traditional spelling looks like Geim. You will have two presidents or princesses, and the Talmud asks, who are these two princesses or presidents that you have? And that was Rebbe, or Rabbi Yehuda Nasiv, the person responsible for the compiling the Mishnah. And the other one was Antonius. And there's a dispute. We're talking about, according to the years of the non-Jewish world, we're speaking about the years 188 to 217. Okay, so almost 1900 years ago. And who is Antonius? Some say that his real name was Caracalla, and others say that he was Septimus. But anyway, we slice him. It seems like this is a contradiction in terms of our axiom, of our principle in the world. How could it be that the prophet was telling Rebecca, on one hand, there would be this distinction. One would always have to be on top and the other one would always have to be on bottom. There would be no equilibrium between the two. No equal ground. So, and then on the other hand, we're talking about Antonius was the leader of Rome. And together, there were many, many shared qualities of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, otherwise known as Rebbe. So, to attack this contradiction, we have to start from the beginning to understand. So let's take it from the top. What I'm about to read now could be found in the book Menorat HaMeor, Candle 3, paragraph 83. There was a decree. Once again, we're talking about the time period is approximately is 188 to 217. according to the Gentile year. Okay, there was a decree against the Jewish people forbidding circumcision. Rabbi Shimon, the son of Gamliel, had a son that was named Yehuda, later to become Rebbe or Prince. Number 3, though it was against the law, quote unquote, Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Shimon, the son of Gamliel, was circumcised against the law. Number 4, word leaked about town, about this event of Rabbi Shimon, who circumcised his son Yehuda. The word got out. Maybe there's some, what do they call those leaky, weaker, WikiLeaks? Yeah, there we go. Eventually, Rabbi Gamliel and his wife were summoned to a hearing by a Roman government official. On the way to their trial, Rabbi Gamliel and his wife stopped in a hotel or an inn. And there they ran into the parents, the new parents of a baby named Antoninus. They got to talk, the parents of the little baby Yehuda and the parents of the little baby Antoninus. They began to talk, and it came out that they were summoned for a hearing at one of the Roman government officials. So, Antoninus' parents decided to switch babies. The circumcised Yehuda would be given over to Antoninus' parents, and Antoninus, who was not circumcised, he would be given over to Rabbi Gamliel and his wife. In the meantime, Rabbi Gamliel's wife, during the journey to the hearing, to the trial, would of course 7 or 8 times a day nurse the little baby Antoninus. Now this is a very important point. Why? Because we have many places in our sources in the Torah, in our Torah sources, that tell us an interesting story in itself. When Sarah miraculously gave birth to Isaac at the age of 90, 2 years following the birth of Isaac, Abraham and Sarah threw a party for various distinguished ambassadors. At this party, many prominent women, diplomats, ambassadors attended. It is told in the Talmud of Bava Metzia 87a that Sarah nursed miraculously because there was a suspicion that maybe Isaac was not really her child. Maybe, just like today, you know, people sell kids and leave them on the doorsteps or in the garbage cans. So they figured that it was all a lie. So God made a miracle, and Sarah was able to nurse all the babies present at this party. The words of our sages in Tanchuma, portion of Vayera 38, tells us that all the babies that were nursed at this party given by Sarah and Abraham after 2 years at the birthday party of Isaac when he was 2 years old, all of them converted. There is something very special about the breast milk of a Jewish mother. And this has tremendous influence. As we know the slogan, "You are what you eat." So when Sarah nursed these various babies at this ceremony. All of them converted. Let's take this one step further to the same scenario with the wife of Rabbi Gamliel who nursed the baby Antoninus. Now, according to majority opinion, this Roman prince, ruler, emperor, eventually converted to Judaism. The same exact story. Because this is an exception to the rule, because they merited to nurse from not only a Jewish woman, but a righteous Jewish woman, in the case of Sarah, or in the case of Rebbe's wife. Our sources that tell us that Antoninus eventually converted. This is Tosfot in the Tractate of Avodah Zarah 10b. This is in Jerusalem Talmud, Megillah, chapter 1, law number 10. This could also be found in the Tosfot Harosh, in the Tractate of Yevamot, page 114, side A, or Sefer Yuchasin, in its first article. Could all be found. So number one, folks, the Torah does tell us that the prophet informed Rebekah that there would be two princesses. But this is an exception to the rule, because this Gentile was nursed by the mother of Rebbe. Therefore, he is an exception to the rule. He merited to convert. So of course he could be on the same plateau, because he's a Jew as much as any other Jew. A convert is a Jew as much, or maybe even more, than any other Jew. So that is one answer to our contradiction. Number two, we see in various sources that Antoninus totally submersed, totally annulled himself to Rebbe, as we will see. He made himself into a nothing, into a doormat. Once again, the concept still exists, as we will see. Rebbe was on the top, and Antoninus lowered himself on purpose. His desire was to subjugate himself to Rebbe. First source. Our first source appears in the Talmud, Avodah Zarah 10b. It says the following: every single day, the Emperor Antoninus would serve, like a waiter, serve meals to Rebbe, and also would serve him drinks. And when Rebbe would want to go and rest, and his bed was a little high, immediately Antoninus would lower himself like a step. He would lie on the ground, or perhaps on all fours, in order that Rebbe would step on him in order to get to his bed. Rebbe refused, saying, "Listen, you're the emperor." He said, "What are you talking about? I want to be your footstool in the world to come. If I'm your footstool in the world to come, what is greater than that? I want to have some connection to you, even if I'm connected, holding on to your feet, the lowest part of a body." Another example, we find in Otzrot Yerushalayim on page 92, it says that even when it came, when there was time to eat and there was a meal, Antoninus refused to even allow Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, to spread some kind of salad or some kind of spread on his bread. He refused to allow Rebbe to do such a thing. It was, in his eyes, it was a degrading act for Rebbe to partake, and therefore he would immediately take the knife or the spoon, whatever spread was used, and he himself would put it on the bread or the crackers of Rebbe. So the Otzrot Yam ends and finishes that throughout history there have been a minority that have come from the nation of Esav, the Christian world, that have decided, but via their free choice, to subjugate themselves to the Jewish people. They understand that even though there is definitely a side where converts have a one-up on the Jewish people because a Jew was born into it, that is true. But still, at the end of the day, at the end of 9 innings, or 4 quarters, or 3 quarters if you're playing hockey, we know as far as levels of purity or spirituality, still a born Jew has an advantage. It doesn't mean that, of course, there were great rabbis, the greatest of the world, who were descendants of converts, that's for sure. But still, when push comes to shove, there still is a level of a soul, of a degree that is different between a convert and somebody that was born into it. So, once again, this principle exists. There is no contradiction. When the prophet came to Rebekah and said, "You will have 2 princesses," it's not equality, because these great souls like Antoninus, great souls, they understood that it wasn't an embarrassment to them. It was the exact opposite, just to be connected. Just to be connected. Can you imagine a sports star or a movie celebrity? You know, you're able to get in and, serve them a meal and, put an apron on them so they don't get dirty and clean off the table. What kind of job is that? No, it's an honor. You know what it is? To have 5 or 10 minutes in the same room with a celebrity, with a sports star. Who cares? I could care less about it. It's my honor to clean the garbage off the table. To get my hands dirty just to be with them. That's the idea here. So we still have the situation of Rebbe was on top, and the prince of Antoninus, he would subjugate, he would lower himself always as a doormat, as a footstep for Rebbe. Okay, now, next point. Where in the world is the source of blessing, of prosperity? Listen to this. In the book Palgei Mayim, on page 261, says the following. Based on the tractate of Megillah that we quoted last week, which tells us, if someone tells you that Caesarea, we're on Megillah, page 6, side A, if Caesarea is on top, which is, of course, Rome, the Christian world, then the Jewish people are on the bottom. If the Jewish people are on the top, then Caesarea is on the bottom. The nations. the Christian world is on the bottom. So based on this Talmud, listen to the words of the Palgei Mayim in his commentary. It says the following, listen to this closely. When the Jewish people are not doing God's will, we're not learning Torah, we're not being a light to the nations, we're not doing what we're supposed to, commandments, this causes, so to speak, sadness in the eyes of God. Why? Why is God sad and upset? Because now, all the prosperity, all the source of blessings, instead of going over to the Jewish people, has now gone over to the nations of the world. And only the bare minimum of what the Jewish people need is transferred to the Jewish people. So you know what they say, how one person's garbage is the next person's treasure? That's exactly the principle here. When God sees the Jewish people are messing up, we're not where we're supposed to be, this creates a very, very sad situation, so to speak, for God. Because now, all the prosperity, the blessing, abundance will go to the nations of the world. And what is left, the leftovers, you know, you go to a store and it's, grade C, D, E, F. Like, where's this stuff from, That's what's left for the Jewish people. And that also goes through the nations of the world. So we get this handout. You know all these handouts lately? This socialism that's going on all over the world, in America, all these freebies, handouts. Yeah, that's what we get. And this is the principle that King Solomon said in the book of Mishlei, chapter 30, verse 23. And the maidservant will conquer the princess. The maidservant will conquer who? The princess. Amazing. However, if the Jewish people are on the ball and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, we're speaking, we're acting, we're doing, therefore, God is very, so to speak, happy, because then all the abundance, all the blessing, all the prosperity goes to the Jewish people. And we are on top. And all the leftovers, the grade C, D, E, F, then go to the nations of the world. That's our scale. There is no escape from it. Okay. The rise of Rome, the downfall of Jerusalem and the temple. Okay. We see that when King Solomon married the daughter of Pharaoh, it tells us in a few places in the Talmud. One is on the Tractate of Sabbath, page 56, side B. It says an amazing thing. That the day that King Solomon married Pharaoh, the king's daughter, the angel Gabriel stuck a rod into the water, and instead of water came an island, and that would be the island of Rome, who would eventually destroy the temple. Think about this, folks. Put this in your lap. Put this on your plate. We are celebrating at the time when King Solomon married Pharaoh's daughter. We were celebrating the dedication of the first temple built by Solomon. And think about that. On the same day that the temple is built, eventually we have already the destruction in place, ready to roll. Why? Because of this principle. When King Solomon, when he chose the daughter of Pharaoh to marry him. This is based on a verse. What did he do? This is based on an amazing verse that says that I have seen slaves on horses, and I have seen ministers walking on the ground like slaves. There is a v'nafochu, a totally opposite here. Everything is backwards here. We see that the slaves are on the horse, and the ministers and the princesses and the kings are walking on the ground, escorting. This is exactly what King Solomon did. Once he put his wife above him, then we have a principle. If the nations are on top, then the Jewish people are on the bottom. So this is what happened in the case of Pharaoh, because we see that King Solomon, for his wife, we're talking about how do we see that he put, sometimes we say that there's a dispute in a family. Who wears the pants? Sometimes the husband says, well, I wear the pants of the family, and then sometimes the wife says, no, I wear the pants in the family, which means who's in control. So who's saying that the fact that King Solomon married the daughter of Pharaoh, he was putting her on top? Very simple. Because we know from other sources by our sages that when Solomon married the princess, the daughter of Pharaoh, he closed off various entries into the temple that the Jewish people would use. There were various entrances that he cut off. He closed them in order to make living quarters for his wife. So when we have the scale of the Jewish people, when you imagine coming into a stadium, there's 15,000 people and you have one entrance. I mean, that is like in Hebrew they call it a matkon for an ason. It's like, for sure, you're going to have a trampling situation. It's not good. So King Solomon put his wife, the daughter of Pharaoh, over the Jewish people. And therefore, what do we expect? That same day when this was taking place, even though we were dedicating the opening of the temple, already Rome, the Christian world, was in place. They were in gear already. It had been set up as an island to later to be built and to take over. This is the principle that we learn. The rise of Rome and the downfall of Jerusalem, how did it come about? It came about when we made the nations great again. We were no longer great again. This led to the destruction of the temple and to the downfall of the Jewish people. That is the principle. That is how it works. So, end of days, as we conclude our second part here. The end of days. How's it going to look? Source number 1. A non-believer. This is in the question and answers of Beit HaLevi, the second book the 16th speech. So the Beit HaLevi writes an amazing concept. A non-believer once approached. Now these aren't the words of Beit HaLevi, these are the words of the Talmud, and then the Beit HaLevi will comment. A non-believer approached Rabbi Avau, questioning him, when will the Messiah come? When will Mashiach come? Rabbi Yosef Soloveitchik, in his work, Beit HaLevi, explains what was the discussion. Listen closely. The scoffer's question was, how can the Mashiach arrive? How can the Messiah arrive if we see that the Jewish people need to repent in order to merit his arrival? However, reality, facts on ground, we see, the heretic said, that every day the Jewish spiritual level is descending, declining. So, according to the scoffer, there is no hope for the Jewish Messiah, because the Jewish people, as the generations go by, we're sinking lower and lower and lower into the sewer. However, listen to the answer of Rabbi Avau. Rabbi Avau responded with a verse from Isaiah 62. That is chapter 60, verse 2. When the day comes, listen to the day. When the day comes, darkness and fog will cover the nations. The nations. However, on the Jewish people, God's sun will shine. The Beit HaLevi explains, the redemption can arrive in one of two ways. Number one, of course, if the Jewish people are righteous. Number two, if the Gentiles are wicked. There is an axiom God created, according to the Talmud, Megillah 6a. This is all the words of Beit HaLevi, of Rabbi Soloveitchik. When the Gentiles are downtrodden, the Jews are on top. This is the meaning of the verse in Isaiah. When you see the Gentiles descending to spiritual darkness and evil, the sun, i.e. the Jewish redemption, will arrive for Israel and the world. That's how it's going to happen. It has to be. Either the Jewish people will rise up and they will be in the light, in the sunlight, and therefore the nations, of course, will be on the bottom. Or the nations will sink so low, they will sink so low, then God will have no choice but to uplift the Jewish people, just like in Egypt. The Jewish people were on the 49th level of impurity, but the time had come. And once the time comes, ain't no discussions here what level you are. So either way, folks, it's the Jewish people in the end of days on top and the nations on the bottom. Next. The Zohar Kadosh, in the portion of Vayishlach, page 170. Listen closely. The battle between Jacob and the angel of Esav is really the battle between the Jewish people and the nations of the world. The control of Esav. The nations have control up until dawn. However, from dawn until daybreak begins the redemption process of Israel and the annulment of Esav, the nations. At the beginning of the, I'm summarizing the Zohar. At the beginning of the redemption process, Israel will once again retain a small form of restoration and independence. This is an amazing prophecy. Put on that seatbelt, folks. Start dancing around your house. Scream out. We see that this was prophesied thousands of years ago in the Zohar Kadosh, and we'll see other sources. At the beginning of this process, once again, we're talking about from dawn. The nations rule up until dawn, which means from sunset till dawn. And when dawn hits, as we know, dawn is a process. It's not in one, it doesn't happen in 1 minute. It's a process. Tomorrow, get up at dawn and see how gradually the the light will come to the world. The sun will rise. Same too, it's a process. When we see the Jewish people, we've come back. We've come back after 2,000 years. And we've been restored in the land of Israel. And the miracles of the Jewish people coming back from all the four corners of the earth. And Jewish power and Jewish strength and Jewish defeating of the enemies, of the Jew haters. Amazing. This was seen. We're not in the 9th inning yet, but we're close. We're coming in close. This process will be gradual, as is the process of between dawn and sunrise. The Jewish people will no longer be stepped upon by the nations. The reason for this gradual process, hey man, we want it fast, let's speed it up. No, you got to take it slow. Is that a person who has dwelled in darkness for such a long time, the Jewish people in the exile is likened to darkness. You know when you get up, when you get outside from a dark room, or when you wake up in the morning and somebody pulls those shades on you, you know, oh wow, man, what are you doing? I can't see. Right, because it's dangerous to go from a dark room into light. You have to go gradually. It's dangerous to get up, right? All studies show that when a person gets up in the morning, don't just jump out of bed, Jack. First you have to take, you say Modeh Ani. Tzvi, we're coming right on the finish line over here, baby. We're with you. Okay. So it's very dangerous to be exposed to light right away. It has to be a gradual process. The nations of the world will slowly descend, and the Jews will slowly arise. By the way, this idea is brought down also, a miraculous prophecy of the Malbim 150 years ago. He says the following, based on a verse in the prophet Micha, chapter 4, verse 8. Stage number 1, there will be some degree of the ingathering of the exiles to the land of Israel. Some degree of the ingathering of exiles. Stage 2, a degree of independence, like the day of the judges. Stage 3, kingdom of David. The Malbim brings out other verses, other prophecies that show the process also will be in stages, which means you could look in the Malbim in a few different places where, for example, on Genesis 25:22, look up the Malbim, he also speaks about this degree process. Amazing thing. The Malbim 150 years ago. Imagine 150 years ago, you're saying that there will be an ingathering of the exiles. Man, send you off to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Jack Nicholson, he's waiting for you at One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You would be, you would be hospitalized. Think about it. But the Malbim comes and he just, boom, hits that grand slam. There are stages here. There will be an ingathering, a degree of ingathering. There will be a degree of independence. We see this in our eye, in front of our eyes. Folks, I have a book here. It's called an amazing book, a beautiful book. Everyone should get it. I don't know if they have it in English yet, but it's an amazing book. It is written by many, many authors, and it's a book of statistics. Statistics in all forms of life in the land of Israel. And it talks about the economic situation in Israel. It talks about the agriculture situation. It talks about the ingathering of the exiles. It talks about the building up of the land of Israel. It talks about the wars, the miracles. It talks about coming back to Judaism. It talks about how do we say Echut Chaim? A level of
quality of life.
What?
Quality of life.
Quality of life. Tzvi, once again you came through. Thank you. Okay, the quality of life, and it's a book of 265 pages, and it's all statistics showing this principle, folks. Do you think that Biden, do you think that Trump is going to make America great again? Don't we see? Put on them glasses or contact lenses. We don't understand. We haven't seen in the last 70 years. We haven't seen what is going on. The nation of Israel, the people of Israel, the Jewish people coming back to the land of Israel. Miracles amongst miracles. The Jewish nation becoming a powerhouse in medication, doctors, science, space. You name it. We've become a powerhouse. What is that a sign of? If it's not a sign that times are a-changing and America will never be great again. America has done many great things, and America has been very good to the Jewish people, and they have throughout the years of independence, they have been blessed many times over, and it is a tragedy. But that is what's happening. And make America great again, keep America great again, it ain't happening. And anybody that has a half a brain that could see what is happening in the world with the economy and the unrest in America and what's going on over there with this civil war that's happening within America and the disputes amongst Americans themselves. Over 50% in a new study, over 50% of the American population have now become preppers. They're being prepared. They're stockpiling food and supplies. What are they waiting for? They are awaiting America becoming great again or keeping America great again? No. They smell the coffee. Folks, the gates are closing. It's time for a wake-up for the Jewish people. Don't worry so much about Biden. Don't worry so much about Trump. It's irrelevant for the Jewish people. Irrelevant. God has decided in the last 70 years that the Jewish people are on the rise and the nations of the world are on the decline. And that is the process that is happening. And it is continuing and it will continue. And may we see the redemption already today